Hum, hum, hum.
Home, 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 home. Buenas noches, bienvenidos, good evening. Welcome to this Thursday evening reading and summer writing program 2024, the 50th ever to occur on this planet Earth. Anne has been here for every single one. It's like picture of Dorian Gray, Anne, this suggestion. It's like, I had said earlier today that we, at this point, those of us been in the festival for the start, are running on necromancy. And the real thing is like a life extension project for Anne Waldman, so we are drawing energy from you in order to keep her alive along this planet as long as possible.
Thank you, Jeff. You're not far behind. So wonderful to see all of you here this third week. It feels so good. I'm just incredibly engaged with what you seem to be engaged with, and trying to follow you all as best I can, and keep thinking along this alignment that we're in and this alternative world that we've created, never forgetting the trials and sufferings of others. And I do want to announce a sad note here, but a great tribute to Nathaniel Tarn, who died today. Maybe some of you knew him. He was so much a part of our worlds as I was coming into poetry. He was an anthropologist, poet, a friend, part of the lineage, and a guest of the Kerouac School. Incredible generosity. He had one of the most definitive libraries of any poet I ever knew. I mean, it was a whole sanctuary. It would take lifetimes to read all the books in that collection. He had an extraordinarily sharp mind, and that impulse. I talked about it in the manatee and the thrust of the heart as it moves to help the world wake up, and deeply indebted to all the great work he did. So we're going to read a poem of his. I'll let Jeffrey start. Beloved Nathaniel, wherever you are, he's just entering the bardo tonight.
Before the snake, sitting, facing the sun, eyes closed, I can hear the sun, I can hear the bird life all around for miles. It flies through us and around us. It takes up all space as if we're not there, as if we had never interrupted this place. The birds move dioramically through our heads from ear to ear. What are they doing, singing in this luminous fall? It is marvelous to be so alone, the two of us, in this garden desert.
Forgotten, but remembering. Forgotten, but remembering ourselves as no one will ever remember us. The space between the trees, the bare ground sand between them. You can see the land's skin, which is so much home. We cannot buy or sell this marvelous day. We cannot buy or sell, and I can hear the sun, and within the sun, the wind which comes up out of the world's lungs from immeasurable depth. We catch. We catch. We catch only. I can hear the sun, and within the sun, the wind which comes out of the world's lungs from immeasurable depth. We catch only a distant echo. Beyond the birds, there are persons carrying their names like great weights. Just think, carrying X your whole life, or Y or Z, carrying all that, A and B and C around with you, having to be A all the time, B or C. Here you can be the sun, the pine, the bird.
You can be the breathing. I can tell you, I think this may be Eden. I think it is.
I think this may be Eden. Thank you.
I'm missing my bag, which has something in it. But let's see. I have collaborators who know the other halves of these things. So the run of show is first Amy Bobeda, and then Stephen Taylor, and then Cass Edington, and then we'll have a brief intermission, and then Jade Lassells, and then Thurston Moore. Yes, it will be a spectacular night. Okay, here we go.
Hello. I have the pleasure of introducing Amy. Also, it's her birthday, but be chill about it. Be chill. Be chill. Be chill. Okay, the normal stuff first. Amy Glenn Bobeda is a multimedia artist, poet, essayist, researcher, menstrual advocate, writer, and professor. She teaches here at Naropa and is the director of our beloved writing center, I Say Without Bias. She holds degrees from the University of California, Santa Cruz, JKS, and Alameda Beauty College, and has worked in theater and costume design. She's an active member in the Society for Menstrual Cycle Research, the Radical Anthropology Group, and the Wisdom Body Collective, of which Amy was the founder. The Wisdom Body Collective was started by her and other JKS writers as a process-oriented collective to support, quote, original forms of expression through the body and through the sacred feminine, open to all who embody and create with the feminine spirit. The Wisdom Body Collective also edited and is publishing an upcoming book called 50 Poets, 50 Years, which is an anthology that focuses on female, femme, and non-binary poets of JKS and includes, quote, long-term faculty, frequent summer writing program visitors, graduates, lecturers, and those like Margaret Randall who wouldn't dream of missing a summer event. Amy recently curated an exhibit of visual art and poetry called Bright Girls, named after a Nestler Official Jewelry Co. ad looking for bright girls. This exhibit accompanied a local performance of the play Radium Girls, which explores the political landscape of young women factory workers fighting for compensation and justice after experiencing the detrimental effects of radium exposure. Amy's published books include Red Memory in 2022, What Bird Are You in 2023, and Mi Sin Manitos, The Girl Without Hands in 2023, and Blood to Purify the World will be out soon, published by Spoiten Duyvel. I had the pleasure of reading What Bird Are You on a plane, a choice I made after Amy told me she loved that Ben read it on a plane. It's a book that examines flight, origin stories, combines text and image, mythology, birds, and our simultaneous awe of birds, even as we participate in systems that injure said birds' ecosystems. I also had the pleasure of going through an interview between the marvelous Michelle Naka-Pierce and Amy discussing the book, its themes, and Amy's creative process. When asked the question, Amy, what bird are you? She replied with a baby night heron. So naturally, I took a break from the interview and Googled this. Can we please show the image? Ibises. I think this demonstrates Amy's ability and commitment to hold intersectional ideas and inclusive spaces. Young black-crowned night herons leave the nest at the age of 1 month, but cannot fly till they are 6 weeks old. These babies are go-getters, and so is Amy. I see this early departure as demonstrating Amy's multimodal approach to tackling goals and creative projects, using various avenues of intellectual transportation to discover new ideas. Perhaps most importantly, I think this "don't wait till you can fly to leave" demonstrates a creative ethos of, if you want it, create it. Just start. Please help me in welcoming Amy to the stage.
Wow. I also dressed like a baby night heron today. And then asked other people to dress like one too. Okay. First, I'll start with some thank yous, and then I will give our agenda. You can tell that I teach the pedagogy class, because I'm going to go through the agenda. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Swanee. Thank you, Anne. Bridget. Eric, Hunter, and any other SWP crew that I have not met this summer. Thank you. It's an incredibly impossible, difficult, but rewarding job. So, and then to our pack animals at the back of the room on lights, sound, and video. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Kit. Thank you, Scott and Sergio. Okay, so I have my timer here. Pedagogy people, I won't put the sound on, so don't worry. We use these in our demos in class. I'm gonna do like 6-ish minutes, and then I'm gonna call some people on stage, and we will fill these microphones. I'm recovering from a cold, so who really knows what will happen here? I'm going with the Phoebe, sexy, smelly cat episode of Friends. So I was reading through the Bacchae recently with some friends, and it brought up a lot of questions about the hymn to Demeter, and I had completely forgotten that in my first semester of grad school I worked on the hymn to Demeter in one of Andrew's classes, and I found it, and it was terrible. And I was like, that's cool. So I went back and started a new translation of the hymn to Demeter. Can anybody tell me what the hymn to Demeter is? I like that. That was good. I was like, you can't make a wheat joke. So yeah, it's probably pretty corny. Cool. I will also add that the beautiful Stephanie, who is in the audience, will be selling those 50/50 books tomorrow at the book fair. And it's also your last opportunity to silk screen during the book fair tomorrow afternoon. Bring stuff. We'll also have other stuff if you want to make your own pack animal things. And last note, in this, Zeus is called Sky Daddy, and I 100% stole that from Ben, who uses Sky Daddy to refer to Allen Ginsberg. So, thank you, Ben, I apologize. Invocation. Sing, I said sing. I said sing. Sing your mother of Phylon. Call mother by her name, which is mother, also Demeter. Did you hear about Sky Daddy's brother? His seaweed rode her bony ankle till it snapped. The space between a trident forks and fills. They'll ask her to forget, you to remember this invocation. Her wheat honey is hair, too often mistaken for softness. Plain of Nysa. Can a chariot lament its sad spokes? Can a god regret the silence of the crying girl? A fig meant also the first stage of grief. Whether her body was taken, swallowed in heat, torn like a boar into death, this is the part you will focus on. Her rape, as if it meant more than her wedding day. I cannot hold it against you. There was only one day. A flower grown to order costs more for Sky Daddy. The cost is merely his reputation. For Gaia cannot say why she grew 100 heads on a single stem so sweet, a stench deception to snag a wife for hell. In Kronos' time, his son already knows what has happened and will happen again. She held a crocus bouquet. That part you cannot tear from memory. Her hand laced in his, sweat-drenched, inconsolable. Only Hecate wept. The earth is round. They circled, and she spun death-drunk on a cup of, isn't this the worst timing? Except she lost count, and no one watched from their little boats if heaven wasn't built in a day, and she wondered, as she was eaten, if she could be eaten, if she could be or was alive. She wondered this 12 times. They circled. Only Hecate screamed. They say Moses parted the sea, but the sea split once before for the old woman on shore who could not cast a circle of sand to snare a black ram on the beach. This is how the cry should have gone. Mother, 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 where are moth to a flower? Where? How could I have missed the lesson on Narcissus? There, not where, I see nothing. Mother, please. A mother hears with her whole body whole awake. From the void built a field of wheat. This is how the cry went. Sky Daddy! Silence. In all the light she saw, no shadow of her mother. A stalk of broken wheat becomes a stall bed. I expected a reenactment. A girl, not unlike Persephone, in braids, a late summer dress, maybe a pair of light-up sneakers in the producer's frame. A woman, not unlike her mother, because to ask her mother would be unprofessional, cast just beyond the frame, which is not what happened, is it? Had Demeter been here, we'd have another story, not news. How do you search for a girl swallowed by earth? Do you? Mothers have always been birds, mouthing food into something digestible, to grow into ourselves. Demeter, too, winged herself a cloak, part crow, a bit of raven under a full moon, and flew without a sign. Those who knew said nothing. The second stage of grief offers no remorse. Denial is different than misunderstanding the sun's position. And let's be clear, Helios believed in omission. Something is only as real as hunger. Chipping limestones, before the Parthenon became a mosque, Demeter searched for her. They said she held a torch. I say she became one. A hunger strike is only as real as mother tongue, fruit dry longing, is only as real as 9 days unbathed, wanting. Day 10. An old woman inside the salty shell who knows just what to make of seaweed, how to cure a miscarried pearl, how to mend a mother and daughter, except Hecate said she could only hear Persephone shriek. We're meant to forget this too. Dionysus carved an ear so big it grew thick with prisoner echoes. Here comes the sun. We blame a lack of light for what cannot be seen. Demeter begged Helios, shed some skin. The sun admitted. Her father did it. A typical marriage arranged, bouquet sent, without consequence or mother's consent. Get used to it. But like, she'll be queen and shit? The sun does what it can for a dying body who cannot be touched or even gazed. She will be a queen, he told her. Light's only consolation is heat. Only one thing can come of a beautiful seed, he said. Keep it together, woman. Stage 4. She wanted to make Hades' penchant for grief look like schoolboy revelry. The only thing sadder than mourning veil over a box of Clairol blackest black would be to disguise herself mortal. On bereavement leave from Olympus, not a single person recognized her face, like the day she had no bust hair, riding from Athens to Corinth, and the driver kicked her off at Eleusis, only to have the bus break until the passengers paid her fare. She said, "Misfortunes lay ahead for Greece." Callios' house smelled, not in a bad way, but in a kingly way. Demeter sat at the city well they named after virgins under an olive tree. She thought about the invisibility of old women, the misconceptions of menopause, the garlands of Aphrodite's hair, her own gray and matted. She did not think of jealousy, she just was. Gods are hard for mortals to see. Anonymous wrote in this hymn, rewritten after Gothic destruction, after some Martin sacking, after 9 planes bombed Eleusis. The diaries from that day are missing. Other squadrons report very good coverage, 10 fires counted, 0 gods named. Callios had 4 daughters who filled their city water jugs with acquired taste for curiosity. Who are you? Why are you so old? All these people are so old, why? They asked their father, "Can she come home with us?" A stray cat receives a name. Demeter calls herself Doso, like a Cretan cat captured on a tourist beach. She rode Phaistos' palace. The overnight ferry bought herself a commemorative shot glass, watched the kids at the disco. At 5 a.m., sea-legged, waddling through the port in search of morning coffee, Demeter pushed through stolen sunglasses against her nose. It turns out old women really are invisible. Thank you. So that's the first part. It gets more intense. Okay, so the next thing I will do is call up Charlotte, who you have all met, and Kaylee and Allie, and they are playing the roles of the thimble and the snips and the shears. And we will be at these beautiful microphones. And thank you. We are doing something new and experimental in the SWP way. At the beginning of the year, I started to write cut-up poems, largely with suffrage poetry, because it's an election year, debate happening probably right now, and like just trying to understand what it means to live in this country. And I've cut up those poems, and they were also largely about the labor movement. I've cut them up, and we are performing them, and it's largely about Triangle Shirtwaist. So if you're familiar with the Triangle Shirtwaist fire, you'll know what's going on. If you're not, let's talk after. So in one of the news reports that came out after the fire, there's a line that reads, "There was a plate glass protection over part of the sidewalk, but she crashed through it, wrecking it and breaking her body into 1,000 pieces." So what I think, oh, thank you, friends. What I think we're doing here is both shattering and bringing back together those bodies. So the title of this piece is "This Stunning Waist is Made for All Over Swiss Eyelet."
Embroidery or
The Sabbath, Life and Death Brigade, and
The Fall and Rise of the Shirtwaist of Domestic Empire.
Or men are characteristically bad at darning socks. I went down to the river to pray.
Catherine Rolston Fisher.
I watched a river of women bordered by purple silk.
Amaryllis on the sill, double paned to keep out chill.
Alice Dewar Miller.
Keep in profound seclusion.
You cannot ground a uterus once it has been removed.
Eve enters the courtroom.
Alice Dewar Miller.
What is a woman's native land?
Sojourner Truth.
I have as much muscle as plastic, I thought.
At the sight of Annunciation, the court cartoonist cannot draw.
Tell me, doctor, What do you know of an overactive uterus?
Have you ever committed any indecent acts against women?
Judy groan.
I remember the accident happened on a Saturday.
Frances Perkins.
A temptingly low price on a splendid waist, pin tucks and import lace.
They said the shirtwaist makes women more like men.
Makes women independent, so bring your own. Thimble.
Shears.
Snips.
A Sabbath fire is illegal as a laudanum drunk stenographer, clacking.
One of the season's best offerings.
A remarkably good waist.
For $1, sizes 32 to 44.
Only comes in white.
Your favorite brand. Value your choice. Thimble.
Shears.
Snips.
Value
your choice.
Everyone who jumped was killed.
Frances Perkins.
This is not the first time.
Rose Schneiderman.
The property value is roughly $1 million per floor, discounting the locked door.
Have you seen the wrinkle in the dead woman's eye? Judy Grahn. This is not the first time girls have burned alive in this city, seeming.
Their burial sheets.
Have you ever set fire to 1,000,000 cotton wicks?
How often have you forgotten to vote opposed to you know what?
Opposed.
To President X.
Are women people?
Alice Dewar Miller.
To President X.
Did your grandmother teach you?
Rose Schneiderman.
Life is so cheap. Property so sacred.
The court report says women didn't smoke. Must have been a cutter's butt. The estimated property value is $1 million per floor.
They warned me that I can't get my union book unless I pay them $1.15 in all.
Teresa Serber Malkiel.
The dilapidated fire escape cannot be touched, per the National Landmark Committee order.
Have you ever been charged with woman slaughter?
Rory Gilmore.
Your answer cannot include the word salt.
How can a woman speak?
Herself open
Well laid.
Seam.
the tailor stitched.
Their shirts until they bled $3.
Less than men.
Light held high in strife combusts.
Margaret Whittemer.
If I had shorter hair, maybe my life wouldn't be in such a state of emergency.
If I had longer hair, we wouldn't have to jump.
Men were exclusively cutters who could not darn a sock to fill their fresh-shone boots.
But they voted, kept keys,
Fled.
scenes of the court report.
Says
They were acquitted.
I shouldn't wonder that their conscience pricks them a bit.
Teresa Serber Malkiel.
When was the last time you overlocked a weak seam?
Bring your own. Thimble.
Shears.
Snips.
Can you tell me about your bloomers? Eyes blazed open on the doorknob they could not touch.
Visit the LTKK store.
One woman said she'd rather starve to death than be a scab.
For $28.99, prime shipping included.
Teresa Serber Malkiel.
Take.
Someone else's bread out.
Of their mouths.
Available in hip size 45 to 55.
How many pieces can you unmake a woman before she is?
Woman, ruffle, lace pantaloons, Renaissance Victorian bloomers, kawaii, pumpkin short. Thanks, Daddy Bezos.
How many pieces can you unmake a woman before she is?
An egg full of meat.
Francis E.W. Harper.
Room snowing.
Salvage ash.
Mistaken feathers sleeping.
Infants at home, sedated dead from opium syrup.
Can you tell me about childcare? Do legislators legislate for nothing?
Alice Dewar Miller.
What do you call a jubilee of bodies? Overturned, flung together?
Catherine Ralston Fisher.
Pavement!
You cannot punish a dead mother if you cannot punish a fled man.
Petticoats balloon through firemen's nets.
Rory Gilmore.
She did not jump on me, Grandma.
One ghost protested, her knuckles nodding another's.
I am never was votable.
I am
The cross
never
stitch
was
never.
votable.
I
More
am
of religion
never
than
was
a
votable.
livelihood.
The cross
Never was
stitch
than
To
a
never.
stick your heel
More
in
of
To stick
religion
your
than a
heel in
livelihood.
and rip.
To stick
than a
your heel in
livelihood.
and rip.
To stick your heel in and rip. Thank you so much.
Que bueno. Thank you. Thank you. Beyond being a friend to many in this room and into this place, Stephen Taylor is a poet, musician, songwriter, and ethnomusicologist. His articles, reviews, essays, and poems have appeared in the widest range of anthologies and zines. He's published 2 books of poems, and in 2003, Wesleyan produced his book of musical ethnography, False Prophet, Field Notes from the Punk Underground. He's recently edited a collection of conversations between William Burroughs and Allen Ginsberg entitled Don't Hide the Madness. And this is a really terrific example of his archival work, and he's an amazing archivist as well. He's composed music for the theater, film, radio drama, and installations, and made more than a dozen records with New York hardcore band The False Prophets, and has collaborated with various artists, including Allen Ginsberg, Anne Waldman, and so many other poets in the US and Europe. Since 1984, Stephen has been a member of the underground rock band, The Fugs. Stephen was also, as I mentioned, a friend of this place and a longtime faculty here at Naropa after coming to work the summer writing program in 1978. He's lectured on this here and debuted some of them and is currently at work on setting Blake's Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience to music, a project began with Alan. This charge by Alan that he gave Stephen to do the songs of experience and innocence is really, it's such a beautiful thing that Stephen's been fulfilling it, this relationship long past Alan's death. But it's, to me, it strikes me as more than just that personal relationship being fulfilled, but his commitment to the social life and the social relations that undermake making art, and especially art in the unofficial zones of culture or counterculture. Those zones of artistic making and sounding that overlap and edge into communities of care, concern, and social action. The mix of teacher, thinker, friend, collaborator, ethnographer, musician seem all bound up into the living that Stephen Taylor has done on the earth thus far and will likely yet. And the signal word that comes to mind to get at this particular synthesis of activities and ethics is integrity. Stephen demonstrates this integrity in all his approach and facets to the work, the keeping of a living history of artists and friends, thinkers, and activists pitched against the devastations of contemporary world, pitched against them precisely by keeping hold of lore, of history, knowledge, and love, and the songs. In Robert Pogue Harrison's Forest, The Shadow of Civilization, he speculates that poetry and the work of poets may yet come to seem a decisive act of preservation and safekeeping of essential human values in the face of these forces of forgetting and extinction. Stephen seems to me a poet exactly in that lineage. It's really great that he's here for this year, and please welcome Stephen Taylor.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. It's so great to be back here. Thanks to Anne and Jeffrey and the staff, everybody, Swanee, everybody's so helpful. Such a beautiful place. It's always been home. It's been home since 1979, actually. All right, I'm going to try. Okay, so I started working with Alan in '76, working on songs, and I joined the Fugs in '84 and started working on songs with Ed Sanders and Thule Kupferberg. And that's ongoing. There's a new record out from the Fugs called Dancing in the Universe. There's another one coming. And then I've got this album of songs that I just put out myself, and so I'm going to sing some of those. Thule Kupferberg, I was visiting, his daughter she's a visual artist, and she had a show in a pop-up gallery downtown in New York, and she hung some of her beautiful drawings around the walls of the gallery, and she also hung some of Thule's poems, and I saw these poems I'd never seen before that he written around '66. And so I asked Sam if it was okay, and she said yes, and so this is for Samara. I set some of them to music, and one of them I cut up, and this piece is called Meadowlark. Just about most of the first half of the tune, the first two lines of each verse is from Thule, and everything else is me. And there are 4 poets referenced in the song. And if you're in the MFA program and you can tell me which 4 poets they are, you get extra credit. In the room where I sometimes sleep, among the spirits of the night, and sit and sing and sometimes weep for life and loss and love and light. In the night I sometimes mark a star and a rocket in the dark, the sound of loving in the air, the trilling of the meadowlark. I am here, where are you? Whatever are we going to do? Now that the moon is shining bright. If you miss me, find me where 2 roads diverge, I'll be there. I will wait for you all night. The starry sky does not complain, and the sounds of the trees are all the same. Sing the song of ecstasy, wild night should be our luxury. If you wake, you'll not sleep until every lass has had her will. In spite of generosity, it's paradise that kills. I am here, where are you? Whatever are we going to do? Now that the moon is shining bright. If you miss me, find me where 2 roads diverge, I'll be there. I will wait for you all night. The day is fraught with poetry and challenged by the mystery of all the love that I refuse to make. Walk and walk among the towers, pacing through the dismal hours to sing the world awake. I am here, where are you? now that the moon is shining bright. If you miss me, find me where two roads diverge, I'll be there. I will wait for you all night. People blinded by the sun say hello to everyone. Everything is light and good. I would go with them if I could. On the other hand, I spy, like William Blake so long ago, the Arctic in the fevered eye, marks of weakness, marks of woe. The spotted hawk complains, I too cannot be tamed. I send my song to the sun. The end of the day holds back for me. It flings my shadow on the land. I depart as air, shake my hair, and I'm gone. If you want me again, look for me on the pebble trail beneath your boots, and in the tender young grass shoots when the world is new. If you miss me, carry on the ragged trail until the dawn. I will stop somewhere and wait for you. Did you get them? Who were the four poets? None? Robert Frost, William Blake. Who is having wild nights? Dickinson, Emily Dickinson. Am I forgetting who's the other one? Oh, Whitman. The whole last part of the poem is just right out of Whitman. It's so beautiful. Thank you. Well, Kinky Friedman died today. Yeah, right? Nathaniel Tarn and Kinky Friedman are up there figuring out, choosing a path, you know. Now is the time to choose a path. I have wonderful memories of Kinky. In case you don't know, he was a country singer in the vein of sort of Mark Twain. Very much a cowboy, you know, cowboy humorist. Kinky Friedman billed himself as the Texas Jew boy. And I have a lot of fond memories of him. Later in life, he became a mystery writer. He was quite successful at it. Check out Kinky's books. Okay, so this one I wrote just a couple weeks ago. I wanted to write something real simple and try to sort of defy the urge to fancy up the chord changes. So, yeah. And, you know, I was walking around, and it was raining. We had this beautiful spring rain, and maybe it's because of where I come from, but I just love the rain. The gentle rain. So this is called Love the Rain. Like the sunlight, love the sea, like I love you and you love me, like a song with a sweet refrain. I love the rain. Like the preacher at his prayers, like the spider on the stairs, like wild horses on the western plain. I love the rain. Like the welcome guest you know, the first to arrive and the last to go. What you love is all that remains. Let it rain. Just like Virgil and his Tuscan friend on a road without an end. just like Janice with a ball and chain. Love the rain. Like the lilies on a hill, like the Buddha sitting still. I'm an old man now, but I can't complain. Love the rain. Like the farmer in his field with a crop that just won't yield. I want to be healed, oh Lord, bless me again. Let it rain. Time and time, and carry on till time and time are gone. What you love is all that remains. Love the rain. Thank you. Oh, I'll try to do this one. Let's see, this is complicated. I was thinking about a person that I admire so much ever since childhood. He really turned me on to a whole wing. He turned me on to American music. I was not an American kid, you know. I came from someplace else, and I came from England as a child. And this guy showed up on the TV when I was about 12 years old. And I started reading the biographies. He wrote 2 autobiographies, and I read all the biographies, and I read that he was so determined to become successful in the music business, but he only knew, he knew a few chords on the guitar. He had a couple friends that could sort of play, and he started out playing gigs, and he was an appliance salesman. He was no good at it, you know. He never sold any refrigerators to the poor folks he was supposed to be selling refrigerators to. And actually, but his boss paid his salary anyway, and the first thing he did when he got an RCA recording contract was he went back and paid his boss $15,000. But the main thing that struck me is that when he realized that if he was going to make it in the music business, he should write his own songs. And so he would work as a salesman during the day, and then he would sit up all night trying to figure out how to write songs. So that was sort of the impetus for this. So let's give it a try. It's twangy. Summer in New York and the heat comes down like a bolt from the sun. And the wild young boy who dances on a corner, he's yelling, I'm the one, I'm the one. And the canners are rolling up and down the street, going through everybody's trash. I'm trying to write a song, don't get me wrong, and God bless Johnny Cash. Along, the election is gone, and they're still fighting over who won. Relations are hazy and the radio is crazy, talking about going for the gun. The world keeps turning and keeps on burning till it's all just smoke and ash. Western plain, they're praying for rain, and God bless Johnny Cash. Another year gone, sailing in a storm, with nobody standing at the wheel. What's that sound? Living underground, with demons nipping at your heels. pull and push and beat around a bush. It could all be over in a flash. History is screaming, America is dreaming, and God bless Johnny Cash. Left Nashville on a 309, lying in a box of Arkansas pie. Change at Memphis for the Rock Island line. Gonna pull in a Little Rock right on time. Hey Porter, sing it soft and low. Cash on board, don't you know? Precious cargo riding on that train. You won't see the like of him ever again. Now it's time to end my song. A better day is coming and it won't be long. Try to be kind and keep an open mind in a world of grab and smash. Keep singing and praying, and like I was saying, God bless Johnny Cash. And I'm staying up all night trying to get it right. Thank you, Mr. Cash. Thank you. All right, well, thanks a lot. I'll do some more later, another, out by the deck, or if we meet in the yard or something. But I'll leave it at that for the other readers. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
Hello again. Hi, everybody. Cass Edington is a queer poet, educator, and community arts organizer from Utah. A former Denver Quarterly poetry editor, they are the author of Vernal Hurt from Magnificent Field and Transit from Spiral Editions, with recent work found in Trilobite Journal, Luigi 10 Co., and Annulet. Cass is the founder of Vocational Poetics, a currently virtual teaching and learning platform with offerings from teaching artists and radical educators. They hold a PhD in English and literary offerings from teaching artists, art from University of Denver, and an MFA in poetry from Colorado State University. As a regenerative landscaper, they help create place-based relationships in conversation with the land and its inhabitants. Cass lives in so-called Denver with their dog, Jupiter. Everything Cass Edington writes is a love poem. I want to spend my intro tonight thinking through what this means. The difficulty of giving love is found not in the giving itself, but in the presentation we have been taught to wrap it in. Love, through this expectant lens, seems to be mostly about anticipating the thing or things that we should already innately know to give. In this impossible expectation, love quirks into something monstrous, becomes oppressive, resentful, and silent. The problem with all this anticipatory giving is that it gets in the way of truer realizations of love. It almost always leaves us out in the cold. In Transit, Cass writes, "I forget a wrench, fuck you." And if I were quoting the whole line here, it could be representative of the kind of resentful love I mean, the kind that occurs when we are so frightened from the outset that we can't meet what we expect the other to need of us, and so we presume that we will become instead disappointing to them. Faced with this, we are likely to play out some rote expectation of action or to not act at all, thus not finding ourselves into new possibilities of relation and body. But this line is a trick of enjambment. And what the speaker really says is, I forget, a wrench, fuck. You know as much as I do. And so it isn't a moment confounded by an inability to immediately provide a solution, but an invitation to enter the problem together. Caught up in a system working too frequently against us, we wrench, and so we become two cogs or more spinning our own pace. I think that Cass's poems are always considering how to accomplish this opening up so that the poems and the poet may fold in again, and in this folding bring back resources and time and tenderness to share with all the new people they have encountered while they were open. This instinct, so evident in their poetics, plays out too in the real world. Last summer, around this time, Cass enlisted my help in preparing for our mutual friend Stella, who many of you here know tonight, or tonight know, a birthday parfait. I made the custard and brought cherries from the farmer's market. Cass baked the cake. We met in Denver and assembled the parfait in a tall glass vase, and it was beautiful, and despite being both vegan and gluten-free, it was also delicious. When we met everyone else, including Kelly, who many of you here tonight also know, at the barely operational amusement park in West Denver, and there Stella performed some kind of cake magic, and the sun fell behind the mountains. It felt like we were part of something. The night opened to us. There's been a lot of talk here the past few days about how we might return to the sheer creative potential we witnessed in childhood. And while I can't speak to that exactly, I can say that taking a cake to Lakeside and getting a little too high for the House of Mirrors and losing quarters in the arcade games that didn't work and riding the child-sized train with Cass and everyone else felt like being a teenager again. Back at that point in our lives, where consciously or not, we recognized that there were things that would not forever be open to us. And so greedily, though increasingly furtively, we opened our arms wide to as many experiences as possible so that we might hold them or fold them back in and take them with us down the road. It is as Cass told us in their lecture on Monday. We are not made vessels through separation, but by contact. We congregate under these auspices. We gather for what we can't do alone. We stoop to glean and share our bounty. Please join me in welcoming Cass Edington to the stage.
Oh, that was beautiful. Thanks, Rachel. That parfait was really good. I was trying to think if I was reading love poems or not, but you guys can decide. And there is a projection that will happen when I start reading, just checking to see if that's... I guess I'm reading poems mostly all from the manuscript The Fold, and the projection that's playing, I guess I'll give just a little context, is it was really interesting for me to see because, sorry, I just saw myself. It was really interesting for me to see because I wore a brace when I was really little, and you can totally see that my coordination is not at the level of other children my size. But this video that's playing, a dear friend helped me put together, that's layering some different things with that home video. So. It's cancer season. Okay. I was born in the year of the Lord, I might say, or 11 souls. Was it by immersion? For and on behalf of who is dead, who is dead, who is dead? Begat, 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 received witness and turned away, each rose borrowed and blooming in the desert. I am one such, or have become one insofar as I have been induced, insofar as I have such artifacts in my possession. In this history I shall presently be. Of our debt we were born knowing. If we could sell enough calendars, we thought we could stand upright. Others only flirted. They only would be kissed in the split-level architecture of elsewhere. I was slick as a newly dropped calf. My lips were wounded, but my gait was not evil. As if we could simply shorten our stride to prevent this hitch. Notice the body's articulation, where it snags and catches, the discovery of your own stench, necessary knowledge. Out institutional windows, we wondered, when would the pheromones bear their truth? When did the squirt become skirt? When will the feral find each other? Whoever endured a feeling with a dirty face, delinquent tendencies remaining, would be either bright geyser or slut, boiling under the surface. What properties of force? Slow cooker pot roast Sundays made a garment draped from the shoulders, salvific. Yet the end of the day pooled indiscernibly about the ankles, the white undies of any other day, everything falling off the bone. The tedium we endure becomes the ground we require to vault from fall to cartwheel. Inimitable and inevitable, it takes time for the book to be disassembled. The body takes a long time to resemble. These have titles, but we're just going. Tepid water prevents exit and pleasure. Tonight on the phone, the neighbor laughs through the wall. I'm in the tub, a rare mirroring of our bodies in this structure made for efficiency. I kink my neck like a live wire. There's a breeze on my knees in repose. I attempt the host, a conduit searching for a signal to issue from, crumbling grout and sallow form. My place to plug into, as if visions weren't my purview. I do in the tub what Joseph did in his hat. It takes great effort to translate the body into something less authoritative, something less secret. I attempt enthusiasm, divine possession, unadorned. You will not laugh when I have removed so much to be understood. The boys tussle with the pigskin, marks the ritual in the late fall dusk, their breath made visible, the girls preparing the site. I sample so many substances over the course of so many hours, one sensation bleeding into another, hard to tell beginning from end. In this Pythian potluck, we speak intelligibly of the furnace buckling from the cold, of the structure void of care, slumlord, what seems only heard until it is said. It sounds like the flaming aura of volition, the seraphim kept warm in circulation, of our own holy rage. It seems it's how I know I'm alive. A Soviet blanket I buy online. Under the covers, our knees, soft protrusions. Afflict the comfortable, comfort the afflicted. I make it my background, a talisman until it disappears. The curves I dress to disguise, keep moving, get going or lost. And what would happen if I became the eye of the goddamn beholder? Would I defend it or pluck out mine own? It doesn't even hurt, the self-inoculating martyrs claimed with such fervor. Who is the prayer for? Annually anointed with the oily sheen of back-to-school specials and blessings. If this is just one of many possible worlds, I don't want another object lesson. If I gave you what I believe your attention is worth, I'd have to put it on layaway. Every day we give our lives getting into the lowest kingdom. And then I'm reading, there are like two very long poems in the manuscript called The Fold. And I'm just reading parts from both of those. We discard the scars from their eyes on our backs in the shower. Naked and holy, I've burned my tongue too many times on this piece of script. Though I had readied myself for my debut, I no longer wanted their finery to touch me. You understand the silhouette, its periphery fanned out like a skirt, halo of knife pleats. The drape changes with the audience. Who will retire the mantle? Who tosses it over chair back, a flourish to announce arrival, possible ownership? I borrow what I have no need to own, what I can't purchase. We learn to tend what isn't visible. Our bodies resume their disarray, spreading out when no one else is around. We congregate in gestures, bodies worse for wear. I read we are meant to stay sick so that things stay the same. As a child, I offered a baby my chest to try to keep it from crying. Knowing no failure, the perpetual child bears to risk again, suffer the children, etc. This isn't a story of a new Zion, but a story of how Zion entraps you, safe passage through the outside, escape hatches through other forms of kinship. Without dowry and unable to relay a symbol housed in Rubbermaid, I was hostage to exchange. Now our rituals are breathable, wearable. I ask my friend to sing Silver Dagger instead of Happy Birthday. My mother goes to sleep when the rest of the world is waking. I lay out her scrubs, hot from the dryer so they won't wrinkle. With no silver to protect her, every time I speak for her, the light under the door replies. And there's like a topography map underneath, and that's Utah Lake, which is where I'm from. It's a pretty heavily polluted lake. Someday to die, I make a record of how I came to speak in a storm, willows lashing windows, lightning flashes, the tub hurt, the growing pains wrapped in a towel, dried crisp in the sun, my nose buried within the cat's cold fur, water gliders skate the surface tension beneath the pallet fort, the eddy, frothing at the check gate, at the fence, the neighbor's horses whose teeth terrify and necks I pet. Everywhere prayers for moisture, that our food might nourish and strengthen our bodies, riding inner tubes in the country way in high irrigation, caution to keep the children from drowning, ditches flaking, silt suddenly slick with spring, soft with summer moss slipping between barbed wire, the small tufts of fur, the feral caught in trespass, with no regard to property. We brought the outside in, snow or spit on the wood-burning stove, a small amusement, a great displeasure. When the ditch was dry, crawling inside the culvert's steel ridges, maw caked in mud, spiderwebs lit by the light on the other side. And with this vernal hurt, and with the incidental body, and with the mouth as major mover, and with prepubescent bodies straddling lake driftwood, nothing but a bit of lycra between pubis and steed. Lake people moved across with relative ease, gathering seasonally at the mouth of the river, munificent fishers, possessed by the land, not fishers of men, a graft of Israel seeking an ever-expanding Zion from north to south. Forced famine, genocide, subsistence, a race they were killed, displaced. The lake's shallow water now filled with carp, industry, sewage. No more suckers, chubs, cutthroat, Timpanogos, the river's namesake flung onto the mountain range. A visible icon, a new mythology. Woe be unto him at ease in Zion. There's no difference between nature and mind. Light vibrates in the pleats. Matter speaks in the folds of ruminant stomachs, in the leaves of a choir not yet stitched into signature, the hand still without marked speech, therefore power. A twist braided, not straightened, your gold ring lost in the leaves. It was the end of an era, I thought. I have been here before, thought. I felt the dissonance of the lake lapping the shore, marking absence with presence and erosion, losing a form, a register to gain another. You win as much as you're able to wager and may lose this too. A gamble, the teeth, and also the bite, blood in of the cheek, soft tissue, trauma. In the doctor's office, we prayed for the image to reveal itself, for the Holy Ghost to speak it, magic eye going cross-eyed, light bright in the dark corner, puncturing paper with our patterns. We were searching, not waiting to be found, for our names to be called beyond the veil, peanut butter and bread, plastic talisman carried outside property lines. Sometimes you must conceal yourself for the snack to become sacrament, for the ceremony to be revealed. Agency, a dactyl, I moved reckless, yes, loved by a mother immersed in a culture I inherited, her porousness, the posture of a father, a loner in the same landscape, absented a brother I loved and a sister, another brother and another sister and another brother, all cared for in love's rupture. We protect ourselves from love's wounds, shielding those who weather our expression less eagerly, kept at the surface, picked at and covered. Our lives so long leased, not ours to fully possess, all power channeled indirectly, unseen outside us, everything shimmering, the luminous undersides of poplar leaves dancing in an updraft of wind, sound, speech, a currency always out of reach, knowledge and authority. We watched leash in mouth with nothing but this yard, looking for a hand that would feed us. We tried to express what we couldn't, enthusiasm, a way to ally with the visions kept out of view, our awkward edges in the bright hue of a tree caught fire in the sun's fading light, foliage spilling over barbed wire, everything made from a violent vision, women, water, non-white, other. What wasn't in the book, I wanted to know. Wanted so bad to be so good in a doctrine that would scrape us from the surface of the earth. I'm just going to read a couple more pages. Life leaves its incision, wounds whose edges we skirt. The dress came before the verb. I don't need a name to know what it is I'm doing. Touch bark and bramble, sweat, a skinned knee, rubbed with spit like a mother, like orphans recognize each other. A list of names exchanged for my own, nearing 100 names of the dead projected in quick succession on a screen again and again. Immersed for somebody else's sins, being found an empty vessel, I exchanged the history of a lisp and diminutive ending, dropped syllables like stillborn calves, my birthright. No longer proxy but subject, this poem not a form but a feeling forming. Here is the church, here is the steeple, look inside and see all the people waiting for eternity, a compassionate idea, help meet heaven. When a woman is given her new name, she must tell her husband should she die before him. She must wait at the gates of resurrection for him to call her name through the veil. No woman will enter except her husband shall receive her. Then let me be destroyed. Let me discover what I want and fear from love. And when I reveal myself to you, you understand, unfolding, unfurling, unfastened, turning beneath, turning over, I make it occur. The work we willingly take up, do you know when to leave it? Sometimes I don't want to touch it at all. The odd job, the love affair, unpaid labor, love coming easily with distance to bridge, both hunter and lover. Every time I speak, the mountains straight reply. Blue spruce and blue grasses, blue jay winging through the brush, orange rock dissolving into orange dirt, orange lichen on blue bark. The wind rustles through the fallen leaves, the leaves on their branches, taste of apple still, a buzzing in my ear. My post, if I can issue some solidity against a solution, a fusion of past into presently, taking on the mantle whose value isn't currency, but who is so loving and who loves me where I am, so often latching on where it won't, speak it so I understand it. What stirs us that we try not to love? It takes it out of me from these landscapes. The song develops and decays. The voice is my own. It stays the night. I learn to sing new songs. I try to produce remedy for the mind not given outlet. Dirt quiets what's inside, too much to tune the instrument of my body. Stuffed animals tied to the front of trucks, crystallized from highway slush, salt, and dust, adorning children's headstones, sun-worn homes for insects, worms, the patina of fabric, the opposite of sheen. The decay time makes visible, weathered polyester, snow, rain, chemical rain, soft, indeterminate rain, hail this big, the sun beating down, our legs chafing dry on the sidewalk, everything worn by the light, plastic, fabric, a faded discount, wood, wet and warp dry, so few insects here, we prayed for moisture on the roof, plastic siding flapping in the wind, lace stuffed in the windows, broken glass, plastic rattling. I'm working it out. I'm working up a sweat, droning so the bees might hear me, less signal than sense impression in this, the rehearsal of self. Thank you, guys.
Okay, bueno. One more round of applause for Cass and Stephen and Amy and Kaylee and Charlie and Allie. Let's take a 9 minutes, 9 real human Earth minutes and return.
unsure about what he might do while she is sleeping. Most times, a woman is speaking the same lines with the same inflection and delivery, but she is never quite certain of how her audience will react that night. That the actions pressed into one body mark all women's bodies, but with scars in different shapes and locations, so we forget that we are all one big walking wound. And sometimes a woman feels a pang in the surface of her skin because someone else is pushing into the pain on their own skin, like when her legs twitch and kick while watching people dance, even though she herself gave up dancing quite a while ago. That some sentences endure, certain details of stories, warning signs to look for, or distress signals that will be easily recognized, the phrases of which a woman keeps tucked into the small and secret holes worn into her rearmost molars, those spots rubbed weak from so many years of being told to smile and seeming to oblige, because the DNA of a smile and a grimace are shockingly similar. They could be twins almost. Culprit. Proper noun. Synonyms include passionate, intense, educated, misunderstood, attacked, mentally ill, well-respected, well-liked, crucified, censored, sensitive, a reaction, self-defense, scared, peacekeeping, handsome, charming, fit, the color white. To put a language to violence requires a vast vocabulary of space. To begin, the space between your body and violence. The type of hollow that can be felt in all its barrenness, that allows for infection to breach and swell. A space so empty it fills with tinny ringing, and then a roar, a rushing of blood. The sound your ears lean into in the most empty of silences. The bloat and push of pestilence inside a tooth, so insistent you fidget constantly between pushing back into it with your tongue and stopping your fingers from trying to rip it out of your own face. The gaps of darkness between streetlights as you walk to your car in an unfamiliar neighborhood, or as you open all the closet doors when you arrive home and the house is empty, and that rupture of the darkness. The fast and breathless moment between switching on a light and finding a stark and harmless vacancy before you. The ever-present rift between a flattering or flirtatious word and a hand tensed in his lap, a fist perhaps, or a gripping motion. The lengthened tunnel of a gun's chamber, the lengthened tunnel of a tapeworm burrowing through you, the lengthened tunnel of a pest that causes your garden bed to collapse, the pauses between name, age, physical description, last known whereabouts, cropped snapshot, school photo, the punctuation, the stops and breaking for a breath before continuing, smooth and dry as the concrete lining the empty ditches behind your parents' house where you would walk. The drunken thrill of being told so often how quickly they could fill up, how even if it was sunny where you were, they could become a raging river in a flash and wash you away. The distinct line between empathy for another's grief and the flood of your own. Hesitation separating if you should wait out the storm or make a run for it, if you should walk calm and slow or make a run for it. The resonant vacuum of the violence beside you, behind you, standing close enough to sniff at your hair. He, adjective. He larger than language. He the shape of letters our mouths try to make. He renders. He the sound of a lock clicking shut, trying to be quiet about it. He not the sound of a fever plant opening. He a crude stitch. He a bruise in the shape of 3 fingers. He found beneath fingernails. He good with his hands. He fiddle-headed. He heavy-footed. He marrow-sucker. He drinking directly from. He put his mouth to. He put his foot down. He a translation of so many small details into a quick and vicious moment. He the hand coming towards. It is always a he. He who is jealous. He who has a problem controlling his temper. He who loves her so much. He who doesn't know his own strength. He who is only trying to do right by her. He who is sick of her slutting around. He who knows best. He who drinks too much. He who made a mistake. He who is sorry, so sorry. He who has some things to figure out. He who found God. He who is tense. He who really cares. He who won't be humiliated. He who isn't a chump. He who can't even look at her. He who doesn't deserve her. He who is sorry, so sorry. He who wasn't himself that day. He who has a family history of these things. He who feels emasculated. He who is a real man. He who does what he wants. He who is a nice guy. He who has a bright future ahead of him. He who is under a lot of pressure. He who is sorry, so sorry. He who is doing as boys sometimes do. He who feels hurt. He who feels scared. He who is sorry. He who loves her so much, so goddamn much. This knotted dance of grief, this hemming between acts of preservation, of memory, and the senseless but soothing motions that may quell momentarily the gaping maw poised so close to your neck, near enough to feel the spray of its spit, to smell the rotting depth of its unendingness, its toothsome grasp scraping against your collarbone. It is silly almost. How one morning as you ate breakfast, the hanging thread of cobweb you've noticed for weeks but didn't yet wipe away, detached itself from the ceiling and floated, apparition-like, to land on your toast. And you took up your knife and spread so carefully a paper-thin layer of marmalade on top, thinking of how the dead used to be embalmed in honey, their bodies immersed in coffins full of it. This must be the taste of it. This animal's edge of bereavement, sweetened orange rind atop a thread of dust spun from a body with the sole purpose of killing something softer and more trusting. It is silly almost. How little understanding you still have of loss. Not much more now than when, as a small and faithful child, a distant uncle took you hunting and you learned how wrong you could be. You thought that when the carcass of something wild was cut open, ribbons of red satin would spill out, as though to live is to contain something soft enough to brush against your cheek, some sweetener to add to the many cups of tea you make when unsure what else to do with your wringing hands. If there is any sweetness to it, it is the stinging kind, the punch of syrup shooting through a compromised tooth, the stickiness you can't wash from your fingers no matter how you scrub. I wish that I could say their names. Let the sharp-edged stars from the pit of my stomach constellate up my throat, small spoken letters to leave quiet but felt slice marks along my mouth, cuts to catch the feathered breeze of a witnessing shaped into sound, names. to fill a space which otherwise insists on absence, erasure, on this wide and open emptiness before me. Their counter-insistence like graphite, like coal, an oil-sheened crow stalking along the top of a weathered fence put up for privacy, for the appearance of a safe, impenetrable containment. I wish I could know their names, know the private hums they heard emanate from themselves, the familiarity of half-turning a ring on a finger, a twist of hair wrapped around knuckle bone. I wish there were names to be known, some ambered entry to press into a page and let crystallize, a word to let harden beside the crusted honey along the lip of a jar, something of sloppiness and carelessness always there as reminder, as vow, as value. I wish I could pluck the right syllables from among the airy spores of springtime pollen and breathe it in, a naming, a word with the same profundity as the first time someone put a drop of sea to their tongue and named it salt. The grief is impossible to find shape for, and also impossible to lose sight of. It is not being able to get the blue words out, the azured idea of them. An acute blueness you've seen splashed across an alley wall, but have never found a corresponding paint sample for. You need a precious, contrived name for it, some word you can use to procure a whole can of it, to paint yourself into a room of it, get sick from breathing the fumes of it. On most days you run from it, or rather, you just run. Your legs and heart and breath moving with enough vigor to forget things. Sometimes you even forget your route, and you come to on an unfamiliar street, and there is a moment of panic at how vulnerable you've made yourself. But then you remember, you should be more afraid of the familiar places, of the people who sit beside you in them. And there it is, the grief again. It is nakedness pushed against concrete. It is softness come into contact with textured rigidity, comfort and discomfort holding hands, like when you fell and scraped your shin playing on the garden wall as a child. You could see pieces of your skin clinging to the crannies of the bricks, and you sat and looked longer as your white ruffled sock turned red with blood, perhaps for the first time understanding what it is to marvel at the possibility of loss. It is patterned into your skin, a cluster of tiny scabs that take forever to fall off. It is small shards rising to the surface on random mornings, like how your mother's best friend had a piece of glass fall out of her face at breakfast, and your mother told you again to always wear a seatbelt. 20 years after her car accident, her body still holds reminders, and they work themselves out bit by bit, unexpectedly, and you think, yes, the grief is like that. Yes, just like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thurston Moore is papa to new puppies, Vinkanoog and Apollo. Thurston taught me less is more. You can call me less. This is more.
I think what I said was, brevity is king. And you, sir, are an emperor. Thank you. 50 years, congratulations, and thank you, Anne, for shepherding so many poets and writers into the world and the universe. 50 is not really that old, though. I mean, if you think about it. I was always told that life begins at 60, and it kind of does. I was 16 in 1974 when the school started, and I just got my driver's license. And it took me a while to making concentric circles to all the sort of cultural spots that I was kind of aware of at that age. But God, I wish if I just have got on the highway and come straight here, that would have been amazing, especially that first year when you did that first reading with Chongpa and Alan, which is on the digital archives online. You should really check that out if you haven't. There's this wonderful footage of Anne reading and Alan doing probably the greatest rendition of Howl that I've seen on any other video or audio. It's just really wonderful. And yeah, and I was teasing Anne the other day because the Rolling Stones played in Denver last week, a couple of weeks ago. Anybody go to that gig? No. Well, in '74 they had just played in Fort Collins, and Anne read a poem in her reading called "Some Notes on Seeing the Rolling Stones," and she doesn't remember it. I haven't shown it to her yet, and I think she refuses to see it. But it's a poem that she only read that one time, and it's one of my favorite Anne Waldman poems. She talks about the heroes coming down in their helicopters, and and saying, "All right," and again, highly recommended. Ev and I first came here 13 years ago, and one of the first things we did when we checked into the motel over there is we decided to come over and check out the campus. It was just twilight and the day before the first classes, and I always remember the two of us walking into the campus, and the first thing we saw or startled by was a raccoon, and a raccoon running kind of straight towards us, and then it stopped, and it sort of sat on its haunch, and it just stared at us, like under the tree over here. And Eva grabbed my arm, and she said, "It's Alan." And I met Alan a few times, in New York. I have a great photo of him with my newborn daughter in my arms, and he's sucking on her thumb, and it's pretty amazing. I kind of wanted to publish it in my memoir, but I didn't know there was no photographer credit. I have no idea who took it, but it's insane. It's an incredible photo. I think next time, if we ever get invited back, I'll have it displayed back here and you can see it. I'm going to read just a few poems and a couple of things on music, and that's about it. First, I'd like to sort of do a little the reader pouring water performance that usually. See if I can do this successfully. Whoa. I studied from the best. Let me take my glasses off. Tiniest insect leaping, escaping, humongous human hands sweeping across our sheet, a projectile to the floor sailing along with cookie crumbs as large, if not larger, than the living flying visitant. Entirely freaked out. Whose world is this? How did either of us get here? Chances are we'll never meet again. I've come to hear poets out. Unlike you, they have phone calls. Something bit me. Was it you? Stomp you, I will not. I hope you find sustenance out in the wild. It will do your soul good. I know you got soul. Yes, there is a bug heaven. I know these things. In the next room, Alabama by Coltrane. Our room in tandem piano music of Cage. Paper from the basement. Handshake in the hallway, a poem for the zine, a way to move forward, history, the vessel, the sailboat. Is there a typewriter on campus to change the way things look? Always in the back of our minds. Today, backwards is everything. Stream, blood, pattern, cloud, raw sun, rain, purple, more, Eva, stream, slip, storm, rain, mash, monster, power, soul, fox, sly, out, freak, start, head, date, cheap, rock, punk, Tibet, free, thought, free, love, free, way, free, standing, free, Ukraine, free, jazz, free, Palestine, free. Fire music defies the myth of the new and the anxiety of it's all been done before. Musicians' invocation to open systems transcend delusions of narcissism and hierarchy. The trees outside the academy are resonant power to the truths of composing on the tongue, equal value, respect, regard, and ego liberation. We choose spirit sound in the total sense where the feeling of creative grace, the ineffable, is attained through meditation within group interplay. Even in solo investigations, there is a conference with mind and body, whether in physical state or ghost realm. We are not alone. We are always new each day we wake. Sonic communion is our most timeless sensual art and expression to the human condition. We go about every day's business, yet each moment is charged with chance, a marriage of composition, study, organization, and choice, and surprise. We seek delight. We choose to share. We are city and we are forest. We are not hippie and we are not punk. We love you, and we love getting high on love, and we languish the Godhead's sacral energy of sex and worship. When I cross the street, it is because you are there. Modesty and rock and roll equal magic. You may stand or sit, your choice, based on your comfort to confidence. At times, I sit, electric guitar, friend on lap, plugged straight through to black amp via select effects, distortion, phasing, and volume control, a 70 millimeter plexi plectrum, various cylindrical metal and wood files, and naturally distressed serrated drumsticks will be utilized. But it's the touch, the skin, bone and blood, fingernails, all instructed by thought, practice, environment, considerations of company and breath that pronounces the sound and action with a realization and with responsibility to performance. This is creative light, expression in sweet time. You hear me, hear you, hear me, hear you, near me, near you, saxophone like its animal descendants, the goose cry, nature be like God, so the poet spreads the word. Skywrite, draw lines in the sand, shred glitter on the crowd, punk prayers for dictator doom, go, hitchhike, discuss, smile, fist in the air, signal in the clouds. No money for scoundrels, only beauty derived from decisions heart to heart. When you reach into your piano to ping the simple profundity of the cable's tuning, we realize our devotion is ecstasy. Some nights are better than others. My love, I wish to count on you. Numbers, though, do not do justice. Your collarbone, the light brush of your hip, I'm in love with the girl who penned a poem to Rosetta. Scientists laugh. They have figured out how to harpoon a comet. We travel space to express freedom, discipline, mapping, and camaraderie. Cutting contests are for jazz bop hotheads. We don't compete, we adore. We investigate you. Playtime, pussycat, oh, drink up, smoke out. Puppy breath, the elixir. Some nights we rip new scenes where gold rays of revolution reflect respect for God, literature, and sun's sonic future. Let's hear it from Mother Africa. All of Ethiopia calls for you, my son. Beauty, the song of Jean Lee. Tree huggers, unite. Tonight's gig will rule. Okay. I shall do one more after a refreshing sip of this wine of the gods. Coming into New York City in 1977 was all about energy. Energy was creative impulse. It was the high art of rock and roll. Our poets were rock and roll people, rock and roll singers, rock and roll writers. Rock and roll was soul, soul power. It was every color. It was black and white, the poet in muted clothes, dressed in black, waiting for trains and on the street, no wheels, just feet and eyes and hearts. We sit on stoops in front of downtown tenements, watching the beat. We came to New York City for poetry. Our poets were in bands. The words, the lyrics in a dance to the amp fire, the bass guitar minimal and dark, the guitar a fuzzing crunch of love's sound, the drums stark and erotic, the words smart, street smart, art rock poetry for the neighborhood. Smoking cigarettes in St. Mark's Church on the Bowery, listening to the men and women who lived the 60s, fought the war in the street to overthrow the sickness, the psychosis of the American war perpetrated on Vietnam. Nixon's dogs howling in inanity, sick greed, money, banker, bummer, corporate light switch control, watching the poets, Anne Waldman, Bernadette Mayer, Janine Palmy Vega, Allen Ginsberg, the readers, the writers, the publishers, the editors, Barney Rossett, Ed Sanders, Tuli Kupferberg, the detectives of progressive beauty in the face of chokehold systems of control, the arms of police pigs hairy with fear, mimeograph machines pushed out of windows to stop the war. We took a train to New York. We drove there. We hitchhiked to New York City for these poets because they were our truth, our world. They saved our world and gave us the world. Allen Ginsberg Band, hand in hand with his love, Peter Orlovsky, on the number 6 train, beatific smiles, free in the city where everyone knows everyone is wild. So let's stick together. But look out, if I'm hungry or my mean uncle pops me in the head, drunk and dumb, where did we come from where such abuse defines our damage, our destiny? The poets love you. We are in a thrall of rock and roll where the poet girl Patty and the poet boy Tom and the poet girl Helen and the poet boy Richard and the poet girl Lizzie and the poet boy Dee Dee and the poet girl Jane and the poet boy David. Their stages, wooden, vibratory, resonant, thrumming communiques of concrete abstraction, transmutating into confessional bliss tracks, and the pre-punk poet voices hear the kids cranking the new raunch, and they started it, let's take it over. Alan and Peter take the stage between Suicide and the Dead Boys, and with harmonium drone chant songs of ritual, sex, love, and exorcism for presidential poop patrol. We are in love. These are wild gray lights, and it is a history accepted in a time where pre-punk history is kept at bay, if not abolished, demolished, and scotched. These cats are okay. It's cool, cooler than we know, and we know that much already in an instant. Burroughs is back in town, and the punk doors have swung open to let the man sit his slow body, thin and deep with experiential wisdom and vision, at a gray desk, intoning timeless American comedy through the lens of distrust and distaste. Never let your kid grow up to be a lawman, is all he has to say to let us know he is the cat we rock and roll, teenage punkoid poet lovers have on our side, and the world can only quake while we push, and keep on pushing, hard even in our softness. John Giorno hits the stage like a sweet hippie Jesus in love with the boy he sees as the gift from heaven landed in the geography where Buddha has set his meat soul wonder. I'm walking down 6th Avenue, 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 and I see an angel over and over again. I see an angel, I see an angel, I see an angel, something like that. Though I put words into his mouth, but it doesn't matter because he put words in my soul. Here was true city, true New York City, bounding and bouncing on his sneakered feet, his cheap jeans and shirt untucked, hot in the summer, the sweat streaming off his chest, his scalp into his eyes, his cheeks, and his tongue howling. I'm walking down 6th Avenue. I'm walking down 6th Avenue. I'm walking down 6th Avenue. And then the lust tongue blows through the room, the air, a steam packet dripping. John Giorno, John Giorno, John Giorno, repeat after me. He doesn't say, he simply states, makes it goddamn clear what's on his mind and his heart. Flowering, flowing, we are in love. This is the New York City I think I need to dig because it is the real deal, and no one can hide the truth. Everyone is walking down 6th Avenue, looking at the angel across the street and wanting to lick the thighs of Jesus, girl, boy. Everyone wants poetry in every language, all vocabularies, spelling sex. I'll never forget John in 1977. 10 years later, Sonic Youth is colluding and colliding and biting the sky god of noise rock experimentation and ministrations, the ineffable Lord Krishna conscious rock and roll daydream nation. And John asks me if Sonic Y can take part in a Giorno poetry system record, and yes, of course. Lee and I played with Glenn Branco where we recorded the track as a dance piece by Twyla Tharp, and John splits the LP with us. It's on his label after all. But he smells the new music and he hears it hot, knows it is this continuance of love, poetry, his existence has always been the tuning fork heart for. But we meet first when he invites me to the bunker, the joint where he and William Burroughs live and breathe and drink and sleep. And here I am, no bill, but me and John discussing Sonic Y being on his new compilation. He asked me if I want to smoke grass. Sure, why not? Never killed anybody. A few tokes, we get a bit stony, and I peer about the bunker and talk about the reel-to-reel tapes lining the wall. Not sure if John wants to play, who knows, but I'm way too high and skip away, never feeling any weirdo vibe. And through the years, screaming and yelling, hey man, hey, yo, John, and he wheels by on his bicycle. We all walk, jump on subways and buses, a bike here and there, but the bicycle is John's downtown New York thing. It is cool to see John whip by on his bike. Hey man, what's up, John? Hey, John, how you doing? John gets a band together, and I call him about playing a gig, and he says, well, his band's going out on tour with Jim Carroll. He's hot and ready and excited. He's got a rock and roll band, and he's yelping hard, howling and yowling at the mic while his boys rip and shred and punk and funk. It lasts a while, then back to life in the bunker. His poet, the Buddha love, the bicycle and the grace of God's eye. Years whip, 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 trip, trip, drip, trip, drip, trip, whip, slip, skip. And John asked me to read poetry with him and Patty at the Buddha Museum on the West Side. And the three of us play to a museum subscriber audience. I'm first reading a new staple booklet I wrote in the midst of Republican George Bush madness and Iraq weapons of mass destruction, deception, and bodies burned for no reason except money, the insult from hell next door. I read an unbroken piece called Nice War, and both John and Patty give me sweet eyes and Patty is gentle in her reading. In the back room, she tells how she was always grateful for John and Alan inviting her from early on in the 70s to join their gang and read and write and to flower and show them what you got. You're one of us, kid, and you're all alone. Love is more powerful than anything we can imagine. John will always be that which is, that which is that which is all or nothing. We connect in Mets, years past and only a few years back, and Sonic Y is put to bed, and London is my dream home, and Eva is my sweetheart, love, healing, healer, love, desire. Thank you, spirits, for the angel by my side. To marry you is divine, and my band is out of sight, and here we are. The beginning is always true, where rock and roll is the poetry of creative fire music, never to be extinguished, each flame a composition made from the improvising licks of fire, cleansing and rebirthing the smoke of dreams, where glory is simple and serene. And here is John, the phone on a pedestal in the museum in Metz, where we can still once again dial a poet, dial a poet, dial a poet, dial a poet. And we play together. John hits the stage, and in his stocking feet dances and howls and shoots the breeze, the poetics of a holy head heart, the poetics of John dialing in, singing out. Every day is the truth, and every night is the poem. Today is the day of poetry for John, who offers us the Godhead nature of the city, the reality of belief, as we wing by with sex heart forever sacred, your poetry, the kindness in your eyes. Thank you.
Que bueno. One more round of applause for Thurston and Jade and Stephen and Amy and Allie and Cass and Kaylee and Charlie, everybody, all detectives of progressive beauty. I think that's a beautiful way of saying what we get up to here, Thurston. Detectives of progressive beauty, considerations of breath and company. We're very glad you've come over, stuffing the chairs in this room. Welcome. Thank you for coming. Thank you, those on the internet. We're glad you're in our company tonight. We hope you can come and be in our company in the future. On Saturday, we'll have a reading with Ann Waldman, Eleni Sikilianos, Tango Eisen-Martin, and myself. Eleni will be joined by Joseph Sikilianos and Kat White. Ann will be joined by another iteration of fast-speaking music, including Devin Braja Waldman, Georgia, I don't know your last name, Max Davies, I think. The two things or three things, I don't know. The archive that Thurston mentioned, like the readings, are free and open to the public. You know, that part of progressive beauty is access, and so we try to hold it open as best we can in all the ways that we can. And I'll just say, I hope you rally to that beautiful effort. I hope you join us as being a detective of progressive beauty in all the ways and needs in this economy. The rest of the evening is yours.